Hello, you fabulous kick-ass woman. Thank you so much for checking this out. We are covering Networking 101. And when I say we, it is the amazing Jayne Mattson. Jayne is the author and founder of the formula, You, Me, You. You can find that on Amazon.com or check out our book club on kcksswomen.com. That's where you can find us on our website and join our membership and get access to more and more of these kind of presentations with executive coaches and experts in their own fields. What you're going to learn today comes from probably a combination of 60 years of experience networking throughout two careers. Both Jayne and I started in outplacement, which is where laid off executives go for support finding their next job. Jayne stayed in that until recently and is now an executive coach to early to mid-career professionals who need to figure out what they want to do. You can find her at JayneMattson.com. That's Jayne, Mattson, Mattson.com. Let's, with no further ado, let's get started. You said so job seekers. So intentional networking is different than just a networking event.
Yes, absolutely. And intentional means that if we're coming to a networking meeting, that you have a list of things that you are looking for, whether you're looking for some advice, you're looking for some information, or you're looking for some contacts. As a job seeker, you have more than enough of those questions or those situations where you need help. And if you don't have that list, then you are not conducting a job search effectively, because networking is with, and especially in a job search, that intention that you come to a meeting with, I need this help, and you clearly know where you need the help the most. And so many job seekers miss the boat on that completely.
So when you're talking about, I see job seekers similarly to small business owners, and coaches who are looking for more clients.
Yes.
So what are the types of questions and needs, like specifically?
Yes, specific. So if I came here looking for clients, I can't just say, my target audience is early to mid-career professionals who are struggling with what next, and they're not quite sure what they want to do, or professional or early career that graduated 2 years ago and they don't know how to conduct a job search. That is one of those so broad of a question that you're going to go, let me think, I can't think. So it's really an unanswered question. But if you said, do you know where, or an organization where early to mid-career professionals tend to go so that I can learn a little bit more about those organizations and build a network? So I'm asking a very specific question.
Like PwC?
PwC.
The consulting companies that are constantly filling their banks with early grad or recent grads?
Good question. That wasn't what I was thinking of, but you brought up a very interesting, comment of an organization that would tend to hire that target audience. So I was thinking, and I am a member of, the Boston Young Professional Association is an association of 30,000 members. It's ridiculous. It's a high number. But early to mid-career professionals, that's where they go. So you would say, Jayne, I happen to know the president of the BYPA. Do you happen to have any contacts there? Because I can certainly connect you. So I've asked a place, where can I go where my target audience tends to be?
Yes.
So that's the first step. And then second step is an introduction. The third step is maybe to attend one of those meetings, and then you network within that group. Same thing. You're not networking with, hey, by the way, I'm a career coach. You're networking to understand their challenges, their problems, what are they doing for solutions, so that you get to understand the mindset and what they are dealing with. So that's a very much of an intentional networking.
Yes. And so it's really narrowing down who you want to be connected to, but
Yes.
not just broadly, an association is a perfect way
Yes.
to get to your target audience.
Yes.
And if you think about it, if we do the 10% rule where you send out 1,000 invites and 100 people come, technically you should be able to create an event like the one that you're coming up with now, where you can invite all 30,000 BYPA professionals and 300 would be interested.
Exactly. And then you want to be thinking of the intent. So what's the goal? Is the goal to get new clients? Is the goal to generate visibility? Because you ultimately want to do webinars. And in order to do a webinar in a group, especially the younger, the millennials and Generation X, the X and Y, they really want to know who they are before they step their foot in the door.
Yes.
And so that's why a lot of it, Erin, as you know, there's got to be a strategy. There's got to be a strategy along the way so that you know that are you making progress? And the progress isn't so much in the job seeker's mind. I have a job. I have an interview. That's not it. Are you closer to your target companies? How many people know you exist? How many people know what you want to do? That's the measurement of success.
And how many people know your secret sauce? Because every single person is different. When I think of in my career in investor relations, I was part of NIRI, the National Institute for Investor Relations Professionals. It brought together all IROs, they're islands all on their own in a corporation. I was very much alone or one of max 3 professionals in some of the largest companies in the world, conducting investor relations. So if you think about all of us together, it was like a whole bunch of, I think we've even called ourselves misfits.
Misfits.
Yes, but we would all be together and every single person around the table had something different that was their most valuable asset. So I think that that's really important when you're thinking about networking and branching out and meeting new people. How do you convey your value?
Right.
Which I have done a core values assessment for folks, because what I realized is my three top values, my core values are integrity, morality, which includes social justice, and both include social justice and a lot of fairness and treating people wisely and fairly and correctly, and fun. That's and as long as I stick to integrity, morality, and fun, I pretty much am and show up as my authentic self.
Right. So it's interesting because the values becomes an important thing. And when you are, whether it's you have your own business or whether you are a job seeker just now starting a job search, the answers will come through other people. And when you start off with people that you know first. It's so important to start off with people that you know, where you have some comfortableness. And you can say, just like you said, so Jayne, these are my 3 areas of value. And I could say, okay, tell me a little bit more, which I will, so like the word integrity. That could mean so many different things to other people. And I would say, which I'll say to you, define that a little bit, because that's no different when I hear people say, I want to work in a collaborative environment.
Yeah.
Well, who doesn't? What does that collaborative mean? So when you say integrity, what would be your parenthesis? What does that mean to you that you want to work with integrity?
Being truthful and honest, being fair and treating everybody the same, like as far as, and I don't just mean like broad brush, no one has color or are different. It's instead, I mean, when I worked at Brook Trout a million years ago, my CEO literally came to my cubicle, sat down in my extra seat and said, "You're the 300th employee here at my company, and you're the first person I didn't interview myself." And I thought, wow. And so he goes, "I want to get to know you."
Oh, oh my gosh, how wonderful is that?
Why do you want to get to know me? Like, I'm here. You don't have to worry about anything, you know? But he did. And through that, he was able to tease more out of me, being an administrative assistant, than I knew I was capable of. You know, I had been an English major and I had prior worked for an outplacement company. So I had like this business sense and this ability to write and this way of understanding things that weren't necessarily obvious. When I think of integrity, I think of Eric Geiler and the way that he approached every single person in the same way. You know, and integrity, I believe, is honesty and truth and sticking to those, even if that truth and being honest is going to hurt. That just means that you have to be compassionate and deliver the message in the kindest way that you can, but while exposing, you know, or illuminating what's happening. So that's what I mean by integrity. The other thing is sticking to your morals, which also falls into morality. Yes. I believe that people should all be treated fairly in work and everywhere else. When I go to a gas station, I have as much, sorry, let me rephrase. I have as much appreciation and respect for the busboy or the gas station attendant or the customer service rep who I'm talking to at my cell phone company that I do for executives.
Yes.
You know, like the most senior people. And that's what I think of when I think of integrity and morality.
And so I suspect that, you know, if you were a job seeker, let's say you were a job seeker and you were looking for your next job, we're talking about networking. So it is about making sure that you find an organization where you get to be those values. You can work in a company where they will value it, they will respect it. You will allow to be honest. You'll be able to have fun. And that comes back to what our original about the intent. So what are you going to do? What companies would you brainstorm where it says, I know a company that is just like that? Because as you know, when we're surrounded by people who are like us, when we're surrounded by people that support our values, they can be different than us.
Yes, absolutely.
But it's all about, I think when it comes down to values and how they live their life and how they develop relationships, you know, that's the other big important part of this whole networking is the relationships that people develop and how quickly they develop it for the long run.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I called you out of the blue based on somebody who had introduced us. Yeah. And you and I connected in a deeper way than a normal networking call.
Yes, yeah, one of those immediate.
Yep.
Yeah.
It did help that we had that common connection.
Absolutely.
So that I think is one of the other important things of networking and being intentional about your networking, because not everybody's going to be able to hire you. Not everybody's going to know exactly the company that you should be at, but they may know others who can get you 10 steps ahead.
Right. Exactly. And one of the things, Erin, that we would be amiss, since we're talking about networking, is the focus more on the relationship. I was actually, I think I mentioned this to you next week. I'm doing a talk where I'm talking to salespeople that sell houses, real estaters. And I'm being brought in because I'm being brought in to talk to them about how to develop relationships and the confidence within themselves. And I love the fact that this realtor says they think that selling is the relationship. In reality, it's relationship is the selling. So they need to, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? And with the networking, it's the relationship building. And to get back to, it's intentional that you need something. However, it does not start off with I need. It starts off with what do you need? It really, when you focus on the other person before you ask about yourself, more than likely that person at the end will be willing to help you more because you've asked them about them. And we got to remember that in networking, people are given their time. They're given their time, and our time is worth a lot. It's worth a lot. So come prepared and get to know me and get, how can I help you? And that comes into that relationship part of the networking. And so that's why we focus more on what is the relationship? Do you know how to develop that relationship? Because networking is that the how-tos. But the relationship is the skill that I find that people don't have as much as they really need or should have.
I totally agree.
I don't know if you've seen that.
Absolutely. And I think that there is this belief as we age that we have the people we have in our network, in our wheelhouse. And that's enough. And yet I have never found that.
No, because so if you think about it, that the relationship is who could you, like on this hand, like 5 hands or 10 hands, how many people could you call up and say, Tom, Dick, or Harry, I need your help? That would say immediately, what can I do for you? And I bet you, Erin, you have more than 10. Because of your nature of giving before receiving. And I will kind of put myself in that category as well, that I am tending more to, I'm going to give to you, and then I'll get it at the end. And that's really becomes the key. And what a place to be when you are in need of something or someone that you can ask for it, but you ask for it when you need it the most. And that's why you're cultivating your relationships. Do it before there is a need. And so many people just don't take the time to do that, as we both know.
Yes. Now, you started with talk about you, the other person. Talk about the other person first. And that's part of the formula that you tease out in your book.
Yes.
And the name of that is you, me, and you. Yes,
exactly.
Tell us a little bit about what that formula is, and how you use it when networking and building these and developing these relationships.
Excellent. Well, let me go back and tell you the impetus for me to write this book. And I remember the exact moment where I was in my office. This was in my former role in outplacement. And I'm working with a senior woman, and she was, I'm networking. She knew a lot of people, and she was out there having conversations and making all these connections. And when people are doing networking, I ask them, they'll say, it's not working. And I'll say, okay, well, tell me, have you learned a lot of information, and you have more names of people to connect with that you couldn't possibly connect with. And this particular woman, the answer to that last one was she didn't have a lot of names, meaning she wasn't getting names of other people. And I said, okay, so you met with Kathy so-and-so last week. Tell me, what did you learn about her? And she sat there and she pondered and she said, I don't think I asked her any questions about herself. And at that moment, I said, no. It is not about you, it's about you, then me, then you. And I had been talking about not this you, me, you. It sort of just like came out of the air. And because it was true. I was like, these people, so many people focus on others first. And so when I heard that, I said, oh my goodness, this woman doesn't know how to build relationships outside of work. Yes. Inside of work is a whole different. We have to do it as part of our job. Once we lose work, somehow I don't know how to do it. In reality, they didn't really know how to do it to begin with.
Exactly.
And ask for help. So at that moment, I came up with the you, me, you. I stopped training or educating about how to network and talked more about how to build a relationship. And so the you, me, you came out of frustration of working with so many people that missed the boat on the relationship first. And what I would get from too many to count, I'd say the relationship first. And I would hear, Jayne, I don't have time to develop relationships. I have a job. And I would just sort of chuckle, but that's how you're going to get a job. And so my concept of the you, me, you is that when you are meeting someone, and let's say more of someone that you don't know, or someone that you haven't seen in a long time,
yes,
that you start off with thanking them for the time. And it's been a long time, Erin, since you and I have caught up. What have you been doing? Yeah. And I'm going to ask you a question, and I'm going to ask you a question, and I'm going to ask you enough questions where I feel I really have caught up with you and I've listened to you a long time.
Yes.
That you start off with thanking them for the time. And it's been a long time, Erin, since you and I have caught up. What have you been doing? Yeah. And I'm going to ask you a question, and I'm going to ask you a question, and I'm going to ask you enough questions where I feel I really have caught up with you and I've listened to you enough where I know, gee, this, she's doing this, she's doing that. I get a good sense of you. Then I could say, because you might in this turn ask me, so Jayne, what about you? Yeah. And one of the things, there's two things that I encourage people to do. And I think I did this once to you. I'll talk about me later. I want to know more about you.
Yes.
Can you imagine someone saying that to you? You'd go, oh my goodness, you want to hear about me? Well, yes, because I want to hear about you. So then when the time comes, they'll turn it back to you. Then you can say, gee, I really enjoyed hearing about X, Y, and Z. Let me tell you where I am right now. I'm currently in a search, or I'm currently looking. And then you talk about what your need is. Yeah. But then you're going to bring this person into the conversation to say, you had said something earlier about, yes. Do you happen to know anybody? So I want to hear that you've listened to me. And then the wrap up is the you to say, Erin, thank you so much for your time. Is there anything I can do for you? So it's always the thank, anything I can do for you, then move on. But that's not the end of it. And the end of it, and I probably should have a you, me, you, ... you. Because the other you is the follow-up.
Yes.
It's the follow-up.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah, it's the thank you for the meeting. It's keeping in touch. It's maybe thinking of them. Sending an article so that when you come back, they will be willing to help you. And that's where the framework of it's more about you than it ever is about me.
Yes.
And so the subtitle is The Art of Talking to People, Networking, and Building Relationships.
Oh my gosh, I love it. Which I told you I need to put on our book club, the Kick-Ass Women book club, right?
And Erin, I have done, I have used the you, me, and an exercise. I have an exercise that I do, and I've done it in a group of women in breakout rooms. Yeah. And I put them in breakout rooms. I give them an assignment, and then I pop into the room and I listen, and I'm watching, because there's all of a sudden they're going back and forth, and I'll go, no. If you end this breakup room without the chance to talk about yourself, that's all right. It's all right, because you can follow up if you had interest in that person. But we all want to just share what we're doing, and that's not the intent. Not the intent.
Yeah, I love it. Um, there's so much around this. So if let's get back to intent, because one of the things that we have done twice with the yogi is set your intentions. And I feel that January is not the time to do it because that's when everybody is starting their resolutions, and only like what 18%
Yes.
of people actually follow through for 3 months.
Yeah. Plus resolutions. I mean, I've never been a lover of that word.
No, I don't like them either. But intentions, it's we're heading into the fall. We've been trained here in New England anyway,
Yes.
or hopefully around the world, that the fall, the September timeframe is when things get started. I think
Yes.
that's kind of the hemisphere switch of
Absolutely.
winters as well.
Yes.
So there's an inherent feeling of change. I think this year coming up next week is this big moon shift that should be impacting every sign in like very emotional ways, just FYI. But it just brings along that vision of change and things being kind of out of sorts. Now we have to organize and figure out what we're going to do. So
Yes.
setting your intentions around networking, I would think I always have a hard time thinking of need and thinking of what my ask is. I think you've noticed this.
Well, let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Are you comfortable asking for help? Because you're absolutely great at giving, the help. How can I help? Are you comfortable receiving it? Asking it, number one,
No.
and receiving it. Okay.
No.
So I suspected that was one of the areas of, as I call it, your nemesis.
Yes.
And I don't know whether it's and I'm not going to say it's not a women thing because it's non-gender related.
Yeah. Totally agree.
And that can get in the way of so many people because asking for help is no other sign than I can't do it by myself. You've got the expertise, so help me along. And there is this, I don't know, somehow we got to figure out, because when I work with new people, new clients, and we get to talk about the networking, I always ask, so let me ask a couple of questions.
Yeah.
But I always ask, are you comfortable asking for help? And they'll say no. And then I might get into, well, help me understand why, right? Because I always like to know the why. The why. And it usually comes with, I don't like to ask people for help. I like to do it on my own. I don't want to bother people.
Yeah.
All of those things that we know exist, right?
Just going to say,
however,
I don't want to be a burden. And that is why. So networking, that's how I've always felt. You walk into a room with everybody's backs facing you, and everybody's off in a little conversations and little cliques around the whole room. And I feel like a burden when I interrupt a conversation or when I join a conversation and either the person drones on forever or they stop what they're saying to welcome me in, which I find very nice and kind, but then they forget what they were saying and never get back to it. Now, think about it. I don't know if they ever had to be talking.
As we talked about, right. And those events, I don't consider, you've got to be really mindful about setting a goal. I'm going to meet 3 new people tonight, and I'm going to ask 3 people the same question and see what I come from the answer. So like we've talked about, the intentional part. Yeah. It's got to be intentional. But that networking in that part. So I completely agree. It's awkward. It's never really worked unless you are, really good with working the room. Yeah. And with doing that. But what about just even sort of a one-on-one that you connect with someone, and that one-on-one person, that the reason why I'm calling or connecting is that I was looking for some advice or help. Are you comfortable even the one-on-one?
Yes. And I am very comfortable in saying so typically what happens is when I'm speaking with people, and I do this all the time. I should say, like, typically when I'm speaking with somebody, I'm thinking about like every keyword that the person says, I'm in my head connecting it to the people in my inner Rolodex who remind me of those keywords or key situations or key, if you were to ask, I'm looking for early to mid-career professionals who don't know what they want to do. I have 3 in mind. And there's most often never more than 3 people I'm thinking of. But in when I speak with people lately, I've been finding people who are more like us and willing and ready to connect immediately to somebody else. Can I make an introduction for you?
Right.
I have been much more forward about asking for introductions to people. I see that you're connected with so-and-so who I've been dying to meet. Could you introduce me?
Right. And also so I'm glad you had mentioned that about introducing that. I find that and so I might say, and well, twofold. Number one, if we were talking and you said something, I might say, oh, I know the perfect person you connect with who could help you. Yeah. And you didn't even ask for that. It was just through conversation. Yeah. But then it's all about when you, and I think you talked about this situation where someone connected you to someone, but you didn't know why. And either she or he said, you'll find out soon enough. In other words, as you're talking to them. I had that situation. So I had a woman who reached out to me, a former candidate. She worked at one of the financial firms. And I said, so great. I'm so glad that Jim connected us. How can I help you today? And she said, I don't know. And I said, okay. Now, mind you, someone else I would have said, I might have said, well, gee, I'm not quite sure then. How can I help you? But since my former client sent me, of course, I kind of took the lead a little bit.
Yes.
And then I took the lead. And then she said, I know why Jim sent me to you. So in the case when someone says, there's someone I want you to meet, for the listeners of this recording, make sure you say to that person, great, what value or what help do you think that either she can help me or I can help her? Because you absolutely don't want to go into a meeting where you don't understand what the value is that you can maybe bring or that you can get from her, because you want it to be reciprocal as well. Because as I said, people's times are very, very busy.
And not everything can be 100% organic.
Exactly.
Sometimes we need that, here's the apple tree.
Yes, exactly.
You can pick the apples once you get there, but this is why I'm giving you the apple tree.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
But Erin, let's go back to about the month of August and the intent of going into the end of the year. So we're going into the last quarter of the year. For job seekers, it is a great time to be unemployed in that sense. If you've done your networking throughout the summer, because that's a great time for you to make some connections. So it's for job seekers, definitely do your networking now, because in the fall, when people get back to work, they'd rather connect and hire people that they've met or they know versus going through those 15 million piles of.
Oh my gosh, yes.
But also for us who are on our own business, that we need to be thinking of, okay, what do I want to accomplish in the latter part of this quarter? Who do I need to make connections with? And what do I need to do? So when I left my former role in outplacement, I left in June, and I spent July and August networking, meeting, and then it was before the pandemic. So I would meet people coffee. I had some targeted companies that I had been following, where I would tell my clients, I follow this company, follow that company. I followed up. And through that, in the fall, I got a consultant role with one of the companies, because it turned out that they were very similar to the work I did, but I had visibility. And there was another company. So there were 2 companies, because of my networking, that came back to me because they knew of me because of the networking I did. So it's got to be intentional. And especially now, since we can see each other face to face, hopefully for a longer period, right?
Yes. Another thing. So, okay, you have me thinking of like 10 things now. I do want to say that in June and July, there's a lot of social networking opportunities. And what I've noticed is in my group of friends, and I always thought that it was indicative of who we are because we all came together through an international drinking club with a running problem. We never ask what each other does. Like we know roughly.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Right?
But yes, exactly. Like family members. Like, what do you do?
Yes. I had a cousin who said, what makes you think that you're an expert on running a company? I said, because I sat at the executive table through small to Fortune 10 companies for over 20 years. Like I know the decision-making process. I know what they're missing when they're not connected to the rest of the organization.
Yep.
You know, it was just so interesting that question came to me. But so right. I do want to say that advocating for your career with those you are personally connected to has to be one of the most important things you can do, because these people already know, trust, and love you.
Right.
So they'll do anything for you as long as they know what you do and what value you bring.
Right. Exactly.
The other thing, as we look at what we're coming into, what do we want 1 year from now? Mm-hmm. You know, I would think for a job seeker, they want to be employed, but also they want proper benefits. They want perks. Do they want to be looking at a bonus? You know, so therefore I need a company that gives bonuses, or a company that has great growth potential. Therefore could potentially, you know, I should be lined up for a good bonus. How am I treated at work? Am I valued? Am I asked to participate in meetings? These are the things that I found important where I used to work. In networking, for me, I think in a year, I want kick-ass women to be at least national. And I want chapters around this country. And I want chapter leaders who are phenomenal women who are helping embrace other women, and we're just uplifting each other. If I were to write that out, it would be on a piece of paper that I can read every day. It would be, I am the leader of 30 chapters of kick-ass women around the States. And so if I were a job seeker, I would think I am valued and heard at the table because my opinions matter.
Right. And, you know, I wish I could say that job seekers in particular would, and maybe not necessarily a year, because they're thinking not much more shorter terms, that they start off, I don't want to say idealistic, because that sounds like it's unachievable, but so they start off with this is what they're looking for, and this is what they want to do. And to find that the best is the relationships they are building. Unfortunately, they're not using those methods. They're using more of the advertised. And so if you think about it, that one way that you just described of the proactive, you know, this is what you want to do, that you've got to do all this work in order to achieve your goal because you have that vision. As a job seeker, they have that vision, but for some reason, they're not willing, or maybe it's too difficult, or once again, they are uncomfortable asking for help. They think, I'm going to apply for a job and I'm going to make it fit. Because if you think about it, the job that you're interviewing for, now I want you to look at what you wanted. So often they don't match.
Right.
They don't match. It might be a good fit, but their number one value, I thought it was important, but I need a job more. I'm saddened to say, I'm saddened that that happens because then they can't do their best work. They can't do their best work. And that goes back to the relationships, that to spend the time while they're working, cultivate those relationships, get to know what's really happening out there, because you can be happy. I mean, I have been blessed with 3 careers, 3, and I have been loving each and every one. I can't even, on one hand, I cannot say that I did not wake up every day looking forward to going to work. I don't even think 5, maybe 5. I'll give it 5. That's amazing. So anyhow, I think we're on the same page here.
I love it. I love it. So I want to unwind only because I wanted this to be roughly 45 minutes.
Yes.
We're at the 45-minute mark.
Yes.
I've been thinking about how to end, how to like summarize, because I told you yesterday that the big thing around Kick-Ass Women is not, talking to people about their experience, instead talking about what advice we can give, the how-tos. So what would be the 3 action items that you would say we together got out of this?
Oh, together. Oh my gosh. Together.
I mean, or what your 3 action items are for the listener.
Okay, for the listener. Number 1 is be intentional, meaning if you don't know what you want, if you do not know like the values, and I'm going to say this is the foundation. I'm a big believer in creating your foundation. Yes. Know what your foundation is first, as Erin had said, what hers are. That's her foundation. If you don't have those, you break apart. And so first of all, identify your values. That's clearly identify your values, number 1. Number 2, if you are in your own business, what is it that you need in order to be successful, defined by you? You've got to figure out what is it you want to do. Is it, in my case, is it, do I want to do one-on-one? Do I want to do webinars? No, right now, my intent is I want more people to be aware of my book, because I want to teach, educate, encourage, inspire people to build their relationships and know that it's not all about them, spending more time listening and asking. So that's like the second one, about the intention. And the third, you would hit it on the head, Erin. And that, I think, is the fun part. And so what I got out of today, that if it's okay with you, I'm going to steal that one as one of mine, because I'm all about fun. I mean, oh my gosh. I know you are. It's like there's nothing I do that is not fun, with full of laughter. And so I guess that for the listeners, that Erin and I are having this great conversation, you can come away with something with everybody that you meet if you listen to them and you are interested in what they have to say. So you practice that framework, and you will gather more friends or relationships than you can count.
So listeners will find you on Kick-Ass Women Book Club, the Kick-Ass Podcast Book Club.
Yes.
And where else can we find you?
Well, you can find me on LinkedIn, of course, Jayne Mattson.
And that's Jayne.
That's Jayne with a Y. Yes, Jayne Mattson. You can find me on my website, www.jaynematson.com. And also I'm on Instagram and Facebook. So I'm pretty out there on social media.
Love it. Love it.
So, Miss Erin, is there anything I can do for you today?
You silly woman, I was going to ask that same question.
I beat you to it.
Share with any mid-to-late career women you know.
Yes.
And anybody who is trying to get ahead in their career. The Kick-Ass podcast is taking what we do in Kick-Ass Women and bringing it to the airwaves to help everybody, in business, in life, who's seeking greater fulfillment. Kick-Ass Women is a connecting and sharing group created 3.5 years ago for mid to late career women seeking greater fulfillment. So if you know any kick-ass women, send them here. And definitely as you're out there speaking with early to mid-career folks, we have resources for everybody who is in business in whatever fashion, like literally just personal and professional development.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, that is great to know. So it's been awesome sharing this platform with you today, having this great discussion about our topic that we're so passionate about. Relationship building is what networking is all about.
I love it. Thank you so much, Jayne Mattson. That's it for the Kick-Ass podcast.
Absolutely. Erin, Lubien, you as well.
As you can tell, Jayne and I had an awesome time together. I have some key takeaways that I want to share with you. First and foremost, networking is not about just meeting people and having one transaction with them. It's instead building and cultivating relationships. If you remember that, first and foremost, I think that you're going to be incredibly successful. The second takeaway that I have, and that I also share on our website for Kick-Ass Women, is core values. Identify what are your core values so that you can emanate them in everything you do. This is what I help organizations with as well. Really, the CEO sets the tone and values of the organization. I help identify and perpetuate them through everything that the company does. So the third one is, what do you need to be successful? You should know that question, or you should know the answer to that question before you enter any networking event. Know what it is that you are going to ask for if somebody says, "What can I do for you?" And the fourth and final takeaway that I have for you is have a blast. It really is fun to meet new people. Whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, just developing a relationship with somebody new can open your world. Thanks a lot for joining Kick-Ass Women. We'll see you soon.